Hi, everybody. Good morning. It is day 72 of spiritual healthcare. So, welcome to all of you. Good morning. It is, yeah, it's day 72. It's hard to believe. It's been amazing what has transpired over this past week. Good morning to all of you. It's good to see you. It was so good seeing so many people yesterday supporting the Blackout Tuesdays. Thank you guys so much for doing that and reposting and changing your profile pictures and all of that. So thank you guys. It is good to see all of you. Good morning to Marge and Dale and Patricia and Kaz. Good morning, guys. It is so nice to see everybody. As I say, we're on day 72. So here we go. Hey, good morning, Darren. Nice to see you. Nice to see you, Sally. Good morning. Good morning from Texas. Good morning, everybody. It is good to see all of you. Today we're going to continue our next chapter we started the other day about the law of forgiveness. We're going to go into that a little bit further and talk about how to expand it into what's going on right now in the world and what we're doing, and talk about also how negative entities tend to form from that. We're going to talk a little bit about possession and stuff like that too. So we're gonna it's all going to be a mix today of things we're gonna blend together, so this all starts to make some sense. Good morning, Jay and Nigel. Hey guys, nice to see you. It is always so good to see all of you guys and to get going on this, because so much has happened this past week, and one of the most important things that we can do right now is do our own work. Check in with ourselves, tell the truth about how we're feeling. So if you guys want to put how you're feeling about things right now into the chat, that would be great. And just start with the prompt. I'm feeling blank. I am feeling whatever it is for you. Don't think about it. Just throw it down there, throw it in there. I think there's so much of the problem right now is that people are talking from their heads. We're trying to make sense of what's going on. We're trying to, get our minds around it. And this is not a mind issue. That's why it doesn't make sense to so many people. This isn't a mind issue. This is a heart issue. People are trying to, find, just these intellectual reasons for all of the things that are happening. But it's the wrong language. It's the wrong language. This is a heart thing. It's funny because even with the paranormal, so many people often use, we want to intellect our way through things when stuff around us doesn't make any sense. We want to intellect our way through it. And the part of the problem is it's the wrong language. It's the wrong language. It's just it's so crucial that we change the dialogue. Darren saying that he's feeling embarrassed, and I thank you for the courage to say that. But we have to start getting in tune. There's no heat, no judgment, you guys. Marge feeling bewildered. Yeah, no kidding. And I think so many people are in the same boat right now, where this really does become a reflection of all of this toxic behavior that's been going on everywhere for a really long time. Whether it be with our the amazing African American population that is in the States, in Canada, all over the world, or whether it be First Nations. In Canada, a lot of the racism is towards First Nations or Asians. So I mean, we struggle with the same things, but it's come to such a head right now in the U.S. Kaz says he's feeling impatient for change. Yeah, we hear that. I so hear that. It's time. It's time. And here's the thing, you guys, is change always looks very chaotic, right? It looks very chaotic because we often can't get our head around it. We can't get our brains around the bigger picture of what's going on, and that can look so bewildering and baffling to so many people. But again, we have to start to feel our way through this rather than be jammed up in our heads trying to put the pieces together, because there's so much. There's just so much. So today I want to talk about, we talked about the law of forgiveness, and I want to continue that discussion. We talked the other day about mastering the craft, that healing starts by taking a look at our broken pieces and figuring out where we are bleeding. And this is something I take my clients through all the time. when they're dealing with a negative haunting. And I've been through myself so many times, because it's easy for us to get into our, as I say, get into our heads, and realize that, you know, that the answers aren't in there, and we get ourselves into a self-analyzing rut of intellect, and it's not about that. So we talked about the idea of taking responsibility instead of reacting to what's going on, taking responsibility and telling the truth, not only about the reality of what's going on, but also about ourselves and how we're feeling, because we talked about this the other day in our last class. If you guys missed the last Law of Forgiveness talk, it was day 70, was it? Yeah, day 70 of spiritual healthcare, which is now on youtube.com/EntitySeeker, so you guys can go back on that as well. So we talked about telling the truth and the fact that now is the time that we get to do it different. So how do we apply all of what we were talking about to what is going on right now? You know, when we take a look at you know, things that have gone on throughout history, whether it be you know, in you know, turmoil in civilizations and all of these different arenas. Interestingly enough, as well as when people are having their own sort of personal problems and issues and stuff like that, whether it be like a haunted home, or whether it be something that's, you know, that's going on, you know, we have to begin first of all to watch our dialogue as to what's happening, and part of this is really wound into the forgiveness process. So instead of being able to say I am afraid, being able to turn around and say, wait a minute, let's change. And this is one thing I'm encouraging everybody to do today, is changing I'm afraid to I'm not clear. Okay, I'm not clear. I'm not clear how to avoid getting hurt. I am not clear on what the next step is. I am not clear on blank, because the words that we use are very powerful, and we have to be very careful not to catastrophize our immediate experience. And I think that's very important. So we're going to change I am afraid to I am not clear today to start with. You know, when we look at then what we are doing, the other day in day 70, I gave you guys the two prompts. I forgive myself for blank, and I give myself permission to blank. Okay, so we worked with those prompts in day 70. I want to add another prompt to that for you guys today, and that's I am accepting blank. Okay, so this is going to be the next thing. I'm accepting blank. I'm accepting a new experience. I am accepting a new way to be loved. I am accepting a new so whatever that is for you, but begin to acknowledge now what we are accepting, what we are moving towards. This is hard stuff that's going on right now. It really is. And one of the things that I found very interesting about people's pain, and as I watch the rioting and the stuff like that that's going on right now, and the turmoil that's going on right now, what's very interesting to me is that Eckhart Tolle, a number of years ago, identified something that was very interesting, and it correlated so strongly with my work in the paranormal that I had to take note of it. And I think this is something that I want to share with you guys, so that you can kind of get your heads around it as well. He came up with a very interesting concept, and the concept was called the pain body. Okay, the pain body. And what it was an aspect of the ego that was essentially looking towards and looking to find hurt and pain. So the way he saw the pain within us that gets triggered, those moments where we get really angry or really upset about something, when somebody just pushes our buttons, the way he started to frame that, which I found really interesting, was that pain body is actually a separate entity that seems to almost have a consciousness that's constantly looking for hurt and fear, and it feeds on the experience of more pain. Probably one of the best examples of the pain body that I think is out there is if any of you guys are fans of The Hobbit or Lord of the Rings, is Gollum. Gollum is such a great example of that, because he's constantly looking for his own reflection, pain in his own in reflections in others, in other people, in experiences, and all of that kind of thing. He's always out there looking for that. So I thought this was a really, really interesting concept. And the pain body always seems conscious because it operates with its own triggers, right? Just like we do. It operates with its own experience. It operates with its own, set of rules in a way. Because sometimes, we'll have that part of us that's hurting or whatever get triggered, and we're going, what the hell just happened? Like, that wasn't me at all. I don't understand what just went on. What the heck? So I think this is something to really take a look at. Where it crossed over for me in the paranormal was when I started to realize that so many of the negative entities that people deal with, just in and around their day-to-day world, seem to be so directly related to that state of consciousness. And I realized that the pain body in and of itself, that entity really does need just as much forgiveness as we do, because I think so many of us right now are reacting rather than responding to the events that are going on. And I thought this was very, very intriguing. So having that pain body and understanding and sort of holding it as this separate entity really begins to give us a little bit of distance from it. And here's where the perspective really makes sense and really helps, is the fact that hurt and that pain, when we begin to see it as something that is its own thing, it gives us that little bit of distance that we want from it, that we kind of strive for, because that space in between the pain and the hurt and the awareness that is observing it, that is presence. That's presence, and that's where we want to begin to be able to respond and respond from, rather than react. Because as soon as we're reacting, we're feeding into it. And we don't want to do that. So it's a very different perspective, and there's been a lot of people that have tied this notion into the idea of possession as well. That what possession actually is the infiltration of hurt and pain and suffering and things like that taking over, and that pain body becoming its own consciousness. So I thought it was just really an interesting concept, and I think it very much is applicable and applies to what we are experiencing now when we begin to look at that pain body as something that is, that it can be triggered, that can be acknowledged and kind of operates on its own thing. We can start to address it a little bit better. Brandy is saying that she would say good morning, but she feels that she'd be fibbing. She's exhausted, physically, mentally drained with everything. Yeah, and I think, man, you guys are so not alone in that. And being able at this point to sit back, focus on our well-being, be able to check in with ourselves emotionally, do the work as best we can. And sometimes doing the work is gonna mean just taking a step out of this. Just take a step out. Turn off your computers, turn off your televisions, take a step out of it. There are times where we have to remove ourselves from the crazy. And our most effective state of being, it's not about ignoring it. The most effective state of being is for us to be able to fill up our own cups so that we can come to the table with something that is better and more proficient, and the fullest part of ourselves that we can possibly be. Because if we're addressing it from a place of being physically and mentally drained, being just feeling exhausted, feeling depleted, we're not giving anything that's going to be of any value. We just aren't. So we have to be conscious of that. This is the time for us to really check in and figure out how we can make that difference. It's interesting because I did a workshop years ago, and then I did it again this past year in Vancouver, called Ritual, which is about exorcism and film and TV and the stories and its relationship to all of that. And what was so fascinating to me is that the people and the stories that we covered, we covered the true story behind The Exorcist, and we talked about the bit about the exorcism of Emily Rose, The Conjuring 2, all of these different cases. And what was so interesting was that every single person that had claimed that they were, being attacked by these negative entities, or they were being, possessed, or, whatever was going on, every person that felt like they had that experience, every single one of them were so depleted. They were so depleted. They were hurting. They were in pain. You know, their pain bodies, as Eckhart Tolle would say, were active. You know, it was filling up their experience. And, you know, and of course, you know, we all know the rest of the story when it comes to The Exorcist and all, you know, all of those kind of things. But the relationship is really interesting. And no matter how it takes the form, whether it be something that is, just exhaustion and burnout, or whatever it looks like for you. Obviously, you know, stuff like The Exorcist is pretty rare. But whatever it looks like for you, you know, every single person failed to be able to look after themselves, and sometimes it's just because they just didn't know. They just don't have the tools. You know, in the case of The Exorcist, when we look back at, they nicknamed him Roland Doe, which was of course Reagan McNeil in the movie, but Roland Doe in real life. They struggled with all of that. And of course, we look at you know, the example of the movie The Exorcist. We look at somebody like Reagan. For those who haven't seen that movie, you know, here she was, you know, this kid she was missing her mom. Her mom was a great mom, but she wasn't plugged in. She was a working actress. She had all of these things going on. And, you know, Reagan was basically by herself. Her parents were going through a major divorce. Her father had really checked out. And all of a sudden, you know, we start to become this magnet as our burnout, you know, begins to kind of take over. And in The Exorcist, I would almost argue that, you know, Reagan maybe necessarily didn't, you know, attract this entity in, but, you know, you kind of begin to wonder. I wonder if she manifested the entity instead. Did it come to her, or did it come through her? It's hard to know. So it's an interesting take. Jason's asking, do you believe the full moon influences anything that you're talking about? It's interesting because, you know, when you look at the full moon and cycles and stuff like that, the full moon, you know, if you're talking to EMTs, or you go to a hospital or anything like that, then they're going to tell you up front that there is definitely a correlation between those things. So they seem to have an effect on people and our emotional and mental states. You know, we know it has an effect on the world. We know it has an effect, you know, on magnetic fields and all of those different things, on currents and tides and stuff like that. And I think anything that is going to play an effect on us, it influences our perspective. It influences, you know, our point of attraction. If we're in a situation like, say, for example, a lot of hospitals experience an increase in the crazy, and just you know, the influx of patients, of people who, you know, maybe are, you know, were having mental health problems. They seem to get worse. You know, all of these types of things. Halloween will do the same thing. There seems to be sort of this change in people. So anytime we're getting a change in our emotional state, it's gonna hands down affect the things that are in our perception and what we're creating and manifesting. So I think as long as it's making a change within you, and that emotional state is shifting, then it's, you know, it's gonna make that change. So we have to begin to look at what we're doing and how all of this concept again comes back to and relates to forgiveness. So what I want everybody to do today is we're going to change the language. We're not going to do I'm afraid anymore. We're going to do I'm not clear. Okay? Because that gives us motion forward. I'm not clear how to avoid the hurt, or I'm not clear how to, because we want to keep ourselves moving. You know, when we look at not only film and TV, but we look at even into different religions and things like that, you know, how we apply this to what's happening. You know, we look at things and like the role of the ego, and we begin to kind of tie it all in to, well, just, you know, our experience and how it's kind of feeding our own inner dialogue. Sally's asking, did the real child do anything to become possessed? And, you know, he was Roland Doe in the film The Exorcist. In the real life case, his aunt, who he was very close to, her name was Aunt Tilly, had passed away. His family was devoutly religious, like fire and brimstone religious. So he had a lot going on. His aunt was very spiritual. His aunt wanted to introduce him to communication with non-physical. His aunt wanted to introduce him to, you know, the like a lot of the good side of what goes on. But you've got a kid, you've got a child who is in an environment, you know, if you're dealing with that type of intense, you know, you're going to hell, fire and brimstone, you know, that heavy doctrine of religion, you know, and he was apparently rather on the isolated side from what I came to understand about him also. You've got a really a nasty concoction there for, you know, delving into non-physical and paranormal. You know, whenever we delve into this stuff, we have to understand that the intention and how we're viewing it, how we're going into it, the steps we're taking to move forward, is going to play a massive effect on what it is we're getting back. It just is. So yeah, like he was not in the headspace that I would definitely recommend to be delving into this stuff. And I think he got back kind of a reflection of probably what I would imagine was his perspective on the paranormal. A lot of people who are very heavy into religion, or just at least some of the darker stuff, really do hold it as something that's evil. They see it as something that is not to be talked about. It's a taboo. You know, if you're involved in it, then it's witchcraft. There's some very heavy stigma around the paranormal with this. So my guess is that is how he was brought into it. That's how he was, you know, apparently raised. So to me, that would set you up for a pretty bad experience, whatever, you know, what like. And in his case, it was not good. It did not end well. I should do Ritual again on Crowdcast. We did this back in April, on April the 4th. I did a live presentation of Ritual on Crowdcast, which was a lot of fun. A lot of you guys had come out to that. That was really good. So maybe we'll do that again, and we'll get into it a little bit more, because yeah, it's very fascinating. It's very fascinating. So today, what I want to offer to you guys is to be able to acknowledge whatever that upset, whatever that hurt, whatever that pain looks like for you. I gave you guys sort of an example of one perspective, which of course was Eckhart Tolle's The Pain Body, which I will post a video to on EntitySeeker, so you guys can hear more about what he has to say about that, because I thought that perspective was very interesting. Very interesting. You know, we want to be able to, you know, to take a look at that and forgive the hurt, you know, forgive the fact that it's like that we're feeling this way. It's okay. It's okay to feel embarrassed and upset and disgusted and frustrated and impatient and all of these things. And we have to be able to start applying, I forgive myself. I forgive myself for allowing, you know, myself to be less than the well-being that I know. I forgive myself for thinking that it's wrong to feel these things. I forgive myself for thinking that, you know, I don't have to, you know, I have to be positive all the time. I forgive myself, because that's a big one. That's a big one, especially with deliberate creators. It's a big one. We think that we have to be on the up all the time, and that's just not true. That's just putting a bandage over the empty gas gauge. It really is. Nigel's asking, I've always been interested to know, when someone follows you home, how does it follow you? Does it attach itself to you, or what? It's interesting, because I think sometimes it depends, number one, on the frequency that you're resonating at, right? When we are in reception to what's happening, which means when we're resonating on the same frequency, you know, we have to remember, like, non-physical can do what it can go anywhere. It bends rules all the time, which is absolutely amazing. Because that's where some of the magic happens as well. Does it attach itself to you? It's not really about attachment, because that would mean that would be a limiting thing for that non-physical energy. But usually when we're in reception to something, there's a reason. And sometimes when like we see this on Paranormal 911 quite frequently, where they will report that an energy has kind of they feel like it's followed them home, or it's been with them for the evening, or something like that. And we have to just remember that, you know, sometimes it's something that is wanting to be said. It's something that we need to acknowledge. But it's always a significant time to be able to look at ourselves and go, what is this trying to tell me? What is this trying to tell me about my own vibrational state, and whatnot? So I don't think it's necessarily that anything attaches itself to us, because, as I say, it would limit the freedom of this amazing non-physical energy that we live in. But I think it's an indicator. It's an indicator that, you know, something's either maybe very right or something maybe off, you know, depends on what that is. But every single one of these experiences is something that I firmly believe that is meant to enrich our experience, even the negative ones, because they're meant to, we're supposed to acknowledge what's going on, whether it be within us, or to talk to, or, you know, engage with something that we, you know, normally would never get to experience. So it's all in how we frame it, but I don't think they attach themselves to us. Marge is saying, there's someone in my life that I can't forgive for something, however I release them. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. That's what this is. It's about not allowing that burden, that pain, that hurt to prevent us from creating and manifesting what it is that we want in our experience. That's the key. That's it. And because as soon as we're hanging on to it, there's that old adage about if you're hanging on to a grudge, then you're drinking, you know, the only one that's drinking the poison is you. You know, the enemy's not drinking the poison. And it really, really is true. And we think so much that by hanging on to it, we are somehow making what they did wrong. And we don't need them to validate our experience. We don't need them to validate our experience. This is about our internal validation. It's about understanding and standing up for who we are as individuals. And if somebody else, if they don't want to have that experience with us, that's fine. That's fine. They can go do whatever they're doing. But this is about validation, and so much of what's going on in the world right now is about exactly that. It's about validation, and it's what we're seeing right now with the hurt and the pain and people looting. I know there's been a lot of people that have been posting online. I don't understand what the looting is for and whatnot. We got to get it that when you don't hear someone over and over and over and over again, that it turns it's hurt, it's fear, it's frustration, and when it doesn't make the destruction and the looting a good thing or right. But we've got to understand that when we get to that level of hurt and pain and the things that are happening, then you end up with that pain body kind of erupting, right? So it's this lack of validation. So we have to be able to not only, as I say, validate the hurt and pain, but validate ourselves and how we are feeling about it, so that we can begin to heal and look at that, and then be able to offer that to other people. Because until we can do that within ourselves, we really don't have anything to offer to others. So. That being said, we still have, of course, we're all still sitting under the pandemic and the quarantine and all of that kind of thing. And we still have to be very conscious of our health, of how we are moving through the world, because, of course, everything's still either reopening. In some places, it's under lockdown in other places. And we want to carry ourselves with the best energy about that as well. So I want to give you guys the affirmations today. If everybody can take a breath. It is natural for my body to be well. Even if I don't know what to do in order to get better, my body does. I have trillions of cells with individual consciousness, and I'm learning how to achieve individual balance. When this condition began, I didn't know what I know now. I don't need to understand the cause of this illness. I only have to gently, eventually release this illness. It doesn't matter how it got started, because it's reversing its course right now. And there's no hurry about any of this. My body knows what to do. My well-being is natural to me. My inner being is intricately aware of my physical body. My cells are asking for what they need in order to thrive. And Source is answering those requests. I'm in very good hands. My only work is to relax and breathe. And I can do that easily. Now, I forgive myself. I forgive myself. I forgive myself. And I give myself permission to allow in well-being. I give myself permission to allow in the joy that has been intended for me. I give myself permission to feel the Source within me and have peace so that I can offer it to those who don't have it right now. Now, everybody take a breath. Thank you guys for another awesome morning of spiritual healthcare and paranormal chat and all of these things. Tomorrow we are doing a really interesting universal law going forward. It's going to be a really good one, and I'm looking forward to delving into it. But I want you guys to have an amazing day today. As much as you can, be supportive for yourselves as much as you are for other people, because everybody's getting online and social media and all of those things, and you know, and whatnot. I'm going to post Eckhart Tolle's video so you guys can take a look at that, because, as I say, it's very different perspective, but it's I think it's something everybody's going to get something from, whatever it is. So have a wonderful day, you guys, and I will see you all tomorrow morning on Spiritual Healthcare. Bye, guys.